I am back today and I'm talking about gut health again. Last week I was here talking about the link between your gut and stubborn weight, and I was talking about how problems with the gut bacteria, with your digestion and your absorption, with how your gut processes hormones and various other things, toxic load, all these things are linked, are kind of how your gut is linked to your weight management. And today what I wanted to touch on was, why does the gut become imbalanced in the first place? And I think probably many of you watching may well be thinking, well, if it's my gut causing stubborn weight, then why is it a problem now? It may well be that you've always struggled with your weight. So does that mean that it's not your gut? Or does it mean that the gut's always been a problem? What we know is that things that happen years and years prior, sometimes even in our childhood, can impact our adult health, even much later in life. There's definitely links between things that happen when you're a child, like taking a lot of antibiotics, for example, and that really changing the makeup of your gut bacteria and impacting things like your kind of propensity to put on weight later on in life. We know that when you are born by a cesarean section, or if you are not breastfed for very long or at all, then that in itself can compromise your gut bacteria. Now, that's not to pass judgment on anyone who has experienced that or has had to have those options for their children. It's just one of those things. But what we know is that the breast milk is a great way of exposing the child gut to bacteria, and being born naturally is where it's thought to be where that first bacteria is introduced into the child's gut. So not having those experiences can impact the gut health later in life. Now, obviously, these are things that you can't go back and change, but there are things that you can do to support your gut. There are other reasons why your gut can be imbalanced, and it can, again, be because of things that happened a long time ago, or it could be things that happened last month. So these things can happen anytime, and things like high stress levels that have gone on for a long time, which could be bereavements or financial problems or relationship breakdowns or anything like that. These long-term stresses suppress your immune system, and your gut is really, your immune system, I should say, is really important for regulating the environment of the gut. So long-term stress, food poisoning, if you've had food poisoning at all, or a severe stomach bug, then that can actually cause some nerve damage in your gut, which can change the way your gut clears debris and kind of build up of bacteria. So that in itself can make you more likely to develop gut imbalances afterwards. And the food poisoning itself can leave your gut imbalanced. It sometimes doesn't fully recover, sometimes doesn't fully clear whatever it was that caused that food poisoning in the first place. Poor diet is also something else that can cause issues in the gut. If you've had a lot of sugars, refined carbohydrates, ultra processed foods, processed fats, a lack of fiber, these are all things that make our guts unhappy. So if they're things that are fine to have every now and then, if you just have them in your diet every now and then, they're not going to suddenly disrupt the environment of your gut. But if these are things that we're having consistently, or there is a consistent lack of fibers and nutrients, then your gut will change over time. The bacteria in your gut will adapt to the foods that you eat. So we can change our gut bacteria by changing up what we're eating. And one of the main things that it responds to is the fibers in the diet. So increasing the amount of fiber and the variety of fiber is going to help to get your gut adapting to a better balance. So poor diet is something that can contribute because of that. Poor sleep is also something that can disrupt the gut for really similar reasons to stress. When we are sleep deprived, our stress hormones increase, and again suppresses our immune function. Certain medications can also disrupt the environment in the gut. We know that antibiotics are a significant disruptor, and there's research that links weight gain to antibiotics. There's research that has shown that people who have taken antibiotics have gone on to gain weight afterwards. This doesn't always happen, but what we know is that there is a trend there, and it makes sense because when you take antibiotics, not only does it kill off the bad bacteria that you're trying to get rid of, but it does also impact your beneficial bacteria as well. And it's those beneficial bacteria that do so much stuff for us, so much in terms of producing nutrients, breaking down our fibers, regulating our immune system and reducing inflammation. So antibiotics can be something that really upsets the apple cart, and sometimes some people aren't affected by antibiotics in that way, but others are, and it can be because the balance wasn't great in the first place, and then you've added in this antibiotic which has wiped out your good bacteria. Now, this is not to say that you shouldn't take antibiotics. I'm not saying if your doctor gives you antibiotics, don't take them, because generally they are recommended in necessary cases, but we need to be conscious of keeping the gut happy after or during and after antibiotics. And whilst I don't like recommending probiotics willy-nilly because they're not a magic bullet and they're not something that are going to magically help you to lose weight, there's a lot more to restoring the gut than that. Despite that, I do recommend taking probiotics if you've taken antibiotics, just to try to reduce some of the impact of the antibiotics. And there are other medications that can disrupt the gut as well. One that many people take is omeprazole, or another type of proton pump inhibitor, and these suppress your stomach acidity, and they're often prescribed for heartburn, indigestion, acid reflux or silent reflux, or if you have any inflammation in the stomach, they can often be recommended, or if you're on very strong painkillers, they're often recommended as well. And this, again, I'm not telling you to stop taking this, but it's something that your body might need help with, because when you suppress your stomach acid with these medications, that acid is there for a reason, and it's there to help you break down your food, and it's there also to help kind of flush the small intestine and clear it of bacteria. So if your stomach acid is suppressed, then you're not breaking down your food so well, you don't kind of sweep the small intestine and clear it with the acid, and then also because the acidity is reduced, it disrupts the pH balance in the large bowel as well. So it really does have a knock-on effect on the whole gut, and it reduces your absorption of certain nutrients like B12 and iron. So there's lots of things that we need to think about to compensate for some of these medications to prevent a longer term imbalance occurring. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that can disrupt the balance of the gut, and these are just a handful of things. There's many, many different things that we consider when we're working on the gut. And like I said before, there are lots of things that you can do to improve the health of your gut, and that can really help with your weight loss. And some simple things that you can do are things like trying to increase your fiber intake and the range of different foods, plant-based foods that you eat. That's not to say that I believe that you shouldn't be having any meat, but certainly increasing the amount of plant-based foods so that you get more variety of fibers helps to keep your gut in a better balance. And if you're going to be trying to increase your fiber intake, then what we want to do is not go crazy. We don't want to just suddenly add in loads of fiber and suddenly add in loads of new foods, take fiber supplements or anything like that, because when we increase the fiber, as I say, the gut bacteria has to adapt to that. And if you do it too dramatically, too quickly, it can cause gas, bloating, pain, because you don't have the bacteria present to process all that fiber. So what we want to do is increase that fiber gradually and increase the range of foods gradually, so that you're aware of what's going on and what is agreeing with you and isn't agreeing with you. And if something is seeming like it isn't agreeing with you, it may be that you need to take it a little bit slower, or just start off with very small amounts of certain foods to allow your gut to adapt accordingly. For example, a lot of people think that they can't tolerate beans, or they can't tolerate nuts, or that kind of thing. But actually what happens is they tend to just overdo it. They tend to have way too much too quickly, or they might have it 2 days in a row when they've not really had those things very much before. It's a bit of a shock to the system. So keep it slow and steady and gradual. So the main takeaway that I think is important for you to have here, the main takeaways from the things that I said in the last video and this video, is that if your gut is imbalanced, then that is something that can significantly disrupt your weight loss progress. It can impact your metabolism, it can impact your hormones, and it can make you feel pretty rubbish all round, even if you don't have any digestive symptoms. And I posted a checklist of symptoms last week to help you to see that there might be a few other things going on that could be linked to your gut. Now, that's not to say that it's a diagnostic list. As many of you mentioned, there are other things that can cause those symptoms, but it's also important to realize that your gut is central to everything that's going on in your body. And if you're struggling with hormonal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms, menopausal symptoms, or other symptoms that are on that list, it doesn't mean that it's solely caused by the gut, but it's likely to be a factor that might be exacerbating that symptom, because there's so much going on in the gut that really affects those hormones and those other areas. So that's another takeaway, is that, if your guts, if you don't have symptoms or gut symptoms, then you could still have imbalances in your gut and things that need working on. And equally, if you don't have any history of these things that I've mentioned that can cause gut imbalances, you could still have gut imbalances. There are many, many things that can contribute to it. Even things as simple as eating too regularly is something that can actually disrupt the way that your gut clears bacteria. So there are simple things that you can do. This is the other takeaway, simple things that you can do to improve your gut health. Sometimes we need a more targeted approach when we need to find out what's going on in the gut, and we need to take a kind of a targeted approach with antimicrobials, which get rid of the bad guys, and then work on things that help to rebuild the good guys, and also make sure the gut lining is healthy, the immune system is regulating and keeping the gut in balance, and that you're producing digestive enzymes and stomach acid. So there's many different factors that we have to consider to make sure your gut is functioning properly. And that's something that we do with our clients in the Nourish Method. And I think I said this last week, that we see gut imbalances in almost everyone that we work with. It is so common because it is really the root of all health. Your gut is connected to everything that's going on in your body. So I hope this has been interesting and helpful, and if it has been, then keep an eye on my feed or in the Facebook group this week, because there's going to be something coming up that I think you're really going to like. Alright, thank you again for joining me. Make sure you give this video a like if it's been helpful, and I'll see you really soon.